Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nitsa Becerra, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm a community service analyst too with the LA Found program at the LA County Department of Aging and Disabilities. Welcome to our LA Found November webinar today, Empowering Caregivers, Financial Red Flags, and Cognitive Health. Before we get started, I would like to review some helpful Zoom webinar tools for our viewers on Zoom. This presentation is being recorded and all attendees will remain muted until the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We will also have a sign language interpretation throughout the webinar. Please feel free to comment or ask questions throughout the presentation by clicking on the Q&A box or place your comments in the chat as shown on this slide. For assistance with technical issues, please let us know as well. An LA Found team member can assist. So let's get started with the webinar. Let me introduce the Los Angeles County of Aging and Disabilities Department Interim Director, Maral Karakuzian, who will provide our opening remarks. Maral Karakuzian is a seasoned social worker and a dedicated public servant with over 20 years of experience in human services, direct practice, policy development, and community advocacy. Her career is marked by a steadfast commitment to advancing equity and improving outcomes for Los Angeles County's most vulnerable populations, including older adults, people with disabilities, foster youth, and survivors of systemic injustice. Most recently, she served as Senior Children and Human Services Policy Deputy for Supervisor Janice Hahn, leading legislative and policy initiatives across child welfare, aging, disability, food systems, social services, as well as other critical areas. She has been extremely instrumental in supporting the LA Found program as the former Senior Children and Human Services Policy Deputy for Supervisor Janice Hahn, and now as Interim Director for the Aging and Disabilities Department. Please welcome Maral Karakuzian.
Thank you, Nitsa. I appreciate it. It's always a little apprehensive to hear my bio, but I appreciate everyone being here today. Good afternoon. I'm Maral Karakuzian. I'm the Interim Director of the Los Angeles County Aging and Disabilities Department. It's a real pleasure to be here as we recognize National Family Caregiver and Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month. Our department proudly serves older adults, individuals with disabilities, and the family caregivers who support them. Our mission is simple: to empower everyone we serve to live safely, independently, and with dignity they deserve, while fostering connections that enhance their quality of life. This year's theme for National Family Caregivers Month is Plug Into Care, which reminds us that no caregiver should feel alone. Many people don't even realize they are caregivers. They're just helping a parent, checking in on a neighbor, or being there for a loved one. But these acts matter, and they strengthen families in our community. Programs like LA Found support caregivers of loved ones with Alzheimer's, dementia, or other cognitive conditions who may wander. With millions of Americans living with Alzheimer's and up to 60% expected to wander at some point, the LA Found program combines technology, compassion, and rapid response to ensure families are safe, supported, and never alone when every moment counts. Today's webinar will give you insights and tools to protect your loved ones. Dr. Hahn will discuss the link between Alzheimer's and financial decision-making, and Dr. Benton will share practical local resources for caregivers. Our LA Found team will also explain how to access these trackable bracelets and other safety tools. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you leave today feeling informed, supported, and reassured, and most importantly, seen. The help is available, but most importantly, the care you provide makes a real difference. Thank you to the team for coordinating this, and thank you for everyone's support. All right, have a good webinar, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Karakuzian. But before we continue, we would like to get a sense of your experience with recognizing financial red flags and cognitive health. We will be launching a brief poll question. Please select the option that best describes your experience as a caregiver. So as a caregiver, have you ever noticed unusual financial behaviors in your loved ones? For example, missed bills, odd purchases, confusion about money. You can answer yes frequently, occasionally, rarely, never, or prefer not to say. I'll be ending the poll and we will be sharing the results. It looks like occasionally is the most popular answer. Okay, thank you for answering. So now I would like to introduce Dr. Han, Professor of Psychology and Family Medicine at USD Dorrance Life College. Dr. Duke Han is a nationally recognized board-certified clinical neuropsychologist and a tenured USC professor whose work bridges psychology, neurology, gerontology, and family medicine. A leading voice in aging, cognition, and decision neuroscience, Dr. Han directs an intramurally funded research program and co-leads major national initiatives that shape the future of Alzheimer's and brain health research. A trusted expert and scientific leader, he has served in influential advisory roles across APA, ADNI, and global health, brain health organizations, with his insights featured in CNN, PBS, Forbes, and other major media outlets. He's also a member of the Los Angeles County Healthy Brain Coalition with the Department of Public Health. Welcome, Dr. Han.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be speaking to you, and I am happy to share about our research, which has been focused on financial decision making as an early sign of potential Alzheimer's disease. And so, this is an area of research that I've been focused on for the last 15 years or so. And it really came about because of my clinical experiences as a neuropsychologist. And so, as a neuropsychologist, I do testing for early dementia or to diagnose dementia. And I remember having patient after patient that was referred, that was discovered to be making poor decisions in financial matters. So, giving away large sums of money to strangers or to bogus charities. And this was discovered by family members, and they were referred to get testing for dementia. And I remember in case after case, uh, we would do hours of testing, and sometimes they would actually be found to be cognitively normal. And so there's a clear change in behavior, there's a clear change in financial decision making, but there hasn't been a change in cognitive status yet. And so this got us thinking that this could be one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease. So, next slide. You may not know this, but older adults over the age of 65 hold about a third of the nation's wealth. However, a portion of older adults lose about $28 billion dollars annually to scam, fraud, and financial exploitation. It's not all older adults who experience this, it's a portion of older adults. And the reasons for this are actually unclear. Next slide. The New York Times actually came out with an article which suggested that changes in the ability to handle finances might be one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease, even ahead of any noticeable cognitive or memory decline. And this actually matches the patient experience I shared with you at the beginning of my talk. I was a part of an Alzheimer's research center at the time, and this got us thinking that this might be one of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease. Next slide. So, one thing that we know based on our work so far is that older adults who are starting to show cognitive impairment but aren't diagnosed with dementia yet actually do seem to make poorer decisions in financial matters. And so, this is work from my grad student, Laura Fenton, which showed that this is the case. And this is a multi-site trial of people from Indiana, California, and Colorado. And so we saw this trend that as older adults are starting to show cognitive impairment, that their financial decision making starts to decline as well. So next slide. So if an older adult shows impaired financial decision making or becomes the victim of a scam or fraud, the burden is not only experienced by the older adult, but it's often displaced upon family members, caregivers, or society. It's a wide reaching problem. We know based on recent work that scam awareness or poor financial decision making does seem to be an early sign of Alzheimer's disease. However, it could also occur without any signs of cognitive impairment. And so the question comes, how can we understand this? Next slide. So, one way that we've tried to understand this is by using brain imaging. We know that if we look in the brains of older adults, we can see changes that happen using brain imaging, that and these changes that occur before any noticeable functional changes, any noticeable cognitive changes. And so for us, it made sense that if an older adult is starting to show poor financial decisions, we might be able to see this using brain imaging before we start seeing it in any sort of cognitive testing. So next slide. We have published a lot of studies using brain imaging to study this And I'm going to show one example next. Next slide. So this is a study where we used brain imaging to explore how people answered a scam susceptibility measure. This measure was developed in collaboration with AARP and the FINRA organization. And both of those organizations interviewed older adults who had been the victims of scam or fraud. A scale was developed based on characteristics of those older adults. So the first item on the scale is I answer the phone whenever it rings, even if I do not know who is calling. So you can imagine if an older adult says yes to this, they're going to be more susceptible to scam or fraud. Next slide. So what we did was we looked at over 300 older adults who did not have any signs of dementia. So these were verified non-demented older adults. And what we found was that older adults who rated higher on the susceptibility to scams measure actually had less gray matter density in the right hippocampus. So that they're showing less brain in an area of the brain called the hippocampus. And what's important about this brain region is that it's also one of the first brain regions affected by Alzheimer's disease. So what this is showing us is that we may be seeing early brain changes that are consistent with Alzheimer's disease. And it's really correlating with how they respond to a susceptibility to scams measure. What's interesting is that we controlled for cognitive ability, and this was still seen. This effect was still seen. Next slide. So at USC, I run a lab where we're focused on trying to understand what makes certain older adults more susceptible to scam or fraud. In addition to brain imaging, we use lots of different tools. We're interested in social relationships. And in general, older adults that are more connected have less susceptibility to scam or fraud. We're also interested in things like the impact of medical history or medical conditions or frailty. And a lot of these things we are seeing help us understand why certain older adults are more susceptible than others. Next slide. So one recent study I'll highlight is this one, again, from my graduate student, Laura Fenton. And in this study, what she found was that lower entorhinal cortex thickness is associated with greater financial exploitation vulnerability in cognitively unimpaired older adults. And why is this important? The entorhinal cortex actually connects the hippocampus and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. So a brain region that helps us imagine future outcomes to a brain region that helps us imagine the value of things or assess the value of things. So you can imagine a brain region that connects these two brain regions is really important to making better financial decisions. What is also interesting about the entorhinal cortex is that it is well known to be the first brain region impacted by Alzheimer's disease neuropathology. And so again, we might be seeing early brain changes that are consistent with Alzheimer's disease, that are consistent with greater financial vulnerability in certain older adults. Next slide. Some final thoughts I'll just share is that it really is an intersectional model. And what I mean by that is that an older adult might have multiple different risk factors, things like Alzheimer's disease neuropathology, frailty, medication effects, social isolation, or medical illness. And these could combine to increase the vulnerability of a particular older adult. However, you might have an older adult that has none of these things, and it really is solely due to the perpetrator or the person committing the fraud or the scam or the financial exploitation. And then we also need to appreciate the contextual factors. So the cultural factors, the cultural differences that exist, the socioeconomic disparities, and things like the pandemic, which really just threw a wrench into a lot of people's health and well-being. So really, we try to understand this question not only as a potential early sign of Alzheimer's disease, but what are all the different factors that might be contributing to this situation. Next slide. So I just have a lot of people to thank, and this is a slide listing a lot of people that are involved in this work. This is a recent picture of my research laboratory, and I could not do this work without them. I also just wanted to acknowledge the research funding that we have from the National Institutes of Health and other foundations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Han. The information you provided is essential for recognizing financial red flags in loved ones to hopefully prevent and provide assistance as early as possible. I'm sure for a lot of us, this is the first time hearing a possible connection between financial red flags and early Alzheimer's. So now we would like to have your input. Now that you've heard a little more about financial red flags and cognitive health, we'll be launching another brief poll question. The question is, which area do you feel caregivers need the most support to prevent financial exploitation and mismanagement? Would it be in recognizing early cognitive warning signs, understanding financial scams and fraud, accessing legal and financial planning resources, coordinating with healthcare providers, or all of the above? Okay, well, thank you for answering. It looks like most of us see that all of the above are areas that all caregivers need support, the most support, which is good to know. Thank you for answering. So now let's move on to our next presenter. I would like to introduce Dr. Donna Benton, Director of the USC Family Caregiver Support Center and Los Angeles Caregiver Resources Center, LACRC. Dr. Donna Benton is a leading gerontology expert and director of USC Family Caregiver Support Center and the LACRC, advancing innovative support systems for caregivers throughout Los Angeles County. With more than 30 years of aging research, policy, and advocacy, she is a key contributor to statewide efforts, including the California Master Plan for Aging and Major Caregiver and Elder Justice Coalitions, and co-leads the Advanced Care Planning Work Group for the LA County Healthy Brain Coalition. Inspired early by the Gray Panthers, Dr. Benton has dedicated her career to elevating caregiver voices, building powerful community partnerships that strengthen services for families supporting older adults with memory and health challenges. Let's give a warm hand to Dr. Donna Benton.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Next slide. Thank you. First of all, I always like to acknowledge all of our partners that help us provide caregiver services throughout LA County and the state of California, which is through our Department of Aging at the state level, the local county area agency on aging, our caregiver resource, and the caregiver resource centers. Next slide. So one of the things I want to talk about is, we're learning that understanding, like you in the surveys, like we need a little bit of understanding across the board around financial challenges for older adults. And as a caregiver, how can we begin to recognize and help somebody who might be having difficulty with their finances? So where you can start is with the Los Angeles Caregiver Resource Center or the Caregiver Resource Centers if you live outside of the Los Angeles area. So how do people find us? That's always a big question. Well, word of mouth is very big. That's what a lot of our former clients talk to other family caregivers or recognize people who may not know that they're a family caregiver, but we call ourselves spouses and adult children and grandchildren and friends and other family names. But at the same time, we can be a family caregiver who is taking time to help somebody both with maybe groceries or a little bit of the laundry, coordinating care and getting people to the doctors, and all the way through more hands-on care of medication management, helping somebody get dressed and caring for them in other physical ways. So people find us through word of mouth. Another very common way is that when somebody is admitted to a hospital, a lot of discharge planners happen to know who we are because we've been around for over 30 years. And so referral might come from a discharge planner who's the social worker in the hospital and who recognizes that after somebody has had a acute crisis, the family may need some more information and guidance about what they're going to do to help maintain the person at home while they're recovering, or if it's going to be something longer, how you can maintain someone at home in the long run. So we get a lot of referrals that way. 211 is a great place to sometimes begin your search for not only us, but other resources that you may need in LA and also throughout the state of California. So you can call and they have a lot of information and they'll ask you some questions so that you can find the right service provider. And that's what the others are, just service providers, social workers, being maybe you're at a senior center or you're talking to one of your you're at an OT class or you've or some other community service providers. Next slide. So when we get the referral, people also say, okay, well, I'm here, but how do I know if I'm eligible? Well, the nice thing about our program is that if you identify as a family caregiver, and sometimes we don't, which I already said, if you're a spouse or a friend or a family member and you're doing some type of care and helping somebody, then we call you a family caregiver. And so that makes you eligible for our services. There are no income eligibilities for our services. And so that is also very helpful because we know that the joys and also the challenges of family caregiving really doesn't, it just kind of goes across all income and education and ethnic backgrounds. You do for Los Angeles, you do need to live in Los Angeles County, but that also includes the city. But if you're not an LA County resident, there are caregiver resource centers throughout the state. And so if you call us and you live somewhere else, we will take time to get you to the right caregiver resource centers. We do predominantly help people who are caring for someone, an older adult with some type of brain impairing condition. So that could be related to Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's or ALS or stroke. But we also help people who might have had a traumatic brain injury. And so the caregiver may be caring for somebody much younger than an older adult. So what we say is if you're over the age of, if the impairment occurred after the age of 18 and it's not something to do with mental health issues, we probably are the right place for you as a family caregiver to start your journey of getting information and resources. Next slide, please. So after you found us in one of these ways and you now know, hey, I can call them. Usually when someone calls us, you're not going to call and say, I'm calling for services for me as a family caregiver. What you probably are going to say is, I'm caring for my wife who has Alzheimer's disease, and I really need to know what services are out there to help her. Well, we're going to listen to that, but we also are going to ask questions about you as a family member who's providing the care. And, many times that comes as a shock to the person on the phone. It's like, no, I'm not sick. Why are you asking questions about how's my health? What kind of things do I need? What's stressing me? What's keeping me going? It's because if you're not there, who is going to take care of your relative? So our client is you, the family caregiver. But of course, we always think of it, this is a family affair. So it's going to be both of you, but we are going to ask in the beginning questions about you. And that's what we call our intake. And that's usually about 15 minutes. And that's just so we make sure that you qualify for our program, that you may just need a couple of services and maybe you're not ready to go on for a further assessment. But if you want more services that are more individualized to your family, because if you see one caregiving family, you've seen one caregiving family. The next step is to do an assessment. And that's really where you get assigned what we call a family consultant. That's the person who's going to be one-on-one learning about you. We start that conversation about who you are, what your family needs are, and that usually takes about an hour or so for us to ask you sometimes a lot of personal questions, but generally it's things that you probably are going to tell us about as you tell your story of your caregiver needs. So we want to make sure that we understand your legal needs, your financial needs, your emotional needs, your social needs, if you need what's going on with housing. So we ask a whole array of questions so that we can really make what we call a caregiver action plan. And that's really where we can find the right resources for you at the right time. Because sometimes when you go on the internet or you talk to other people, they may be giving you resources, but it may not be exactly right for you and what you need right now. Your family consultant is your contact for the rest of your caregiving journey. And so, as your caregiving needs change, you can always call back. We're going to check in on you. And that's the time when we'll just keep giving you resources at the right time for for your right needs. And so that's what we call our ongoing evaluations. Next slide, please. So how do, what that really comes down to is we're here to hear what you need help with. And so it's a lot of listening on our part. And it's because we know that it has to be individualized. Next slide, please. So what can we do? Sometimes people, depending on what you need, it could be all or any of these things. But generally, there are kind of three areas that we have found are in common for most caregivers. We'd start with consultation. That's where we get to know you, we get to know what your needs are, and then we give you referrals that are tailored to you. So you may, right now, it may be in the very early stages. And so maybe you want to do some advanced care planning, or you want to speak with an attorney so that you can understand how you can set up wills, or you may need to talk to someone about Medicare or Medicaid so you can understand how to navigate a healthcare system on behalf of your relative and how you can become a better advocate. And that's where in the early stages, you may need that kind of consultation with your family consultant. And it's also the time, sometimes we just need someone to talk to, somebody who just is just listening to your challenges and the things that you also are very proud of, because many times we forget as caregivers to give ourselves a pat on the back for what we're doing. You're doing the best you can with the information that you have at the time, which leads me to the next thing, information and education. This is, many times we don't know what we don't know. And so we have a lot of courses and classes that can really make an impact on you, what we call evidence-based classes on stress management, techniques that we know will work for you, and you can pick and choose from them, but they actually will help you with any type with stress management. We sometimes you may need to talk one-on-one with a counselor, so we get you to the right counseling service. Or other times you may need to understand like what are some out-of-pocket expenses that maybe you might be able to shift over to another resource so that you can use your out-of-pocket expenses for something else. And so education classes are on all kinds of topics, including how to reach us today. The third area is what we call is, we don't want you to become socially isolated, you and your family. And many times this is what happens to family caregivers, and they get isolated, which then makes you more vulnerable to scams. It also can make the person you're caring for more vulnerable. And so we want to make sure that you can learn not only from us as professionals, but from other people who have gone through or are going through the same thing or similar ways with caregiving that you are. So we have groups, and you can go to a group that maybe it's for adult children, or it might be for spouses, or it might be around family dynamics, which is one of those groups where sometimes we just need to talk about, my aunt comes in and she just tells me I'm doing everything wrong, but that's like twice a year. She just shows up and she's kind of flown in and said, "Hey, you're doing everything wrong," and I'm there every day. And so sometimes it helps to understand how can you deal with different family members and different ways of being able to talk to our relatives. The other thing is like creative expression. We need to relax. We need some respite. And so we have different groups that might be able to, where you can have time to, I don't know, write a journal, do a little bit of art, and you do it as a group so that you can all relax at the same time. Because respite is one of those things that we often say, oh, I shouldn't be taking time for myself. But if you don't fill your cup up, you can't, what do we say? You can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to recharge yourself. And that's very important for you so that you remain healthy for yourself and also for the person you're caring for, because you're going to be there in the long, you want to be there in the long run, because as people say, I'm so worried what happens to my relative if something happens to me. Well, that's why sometimes it helps to go to support groups and get the education and get some emotional support for yourself so that you can be the healthiest person you can be for yourself. Next slide. So just to summarize what I've said, we have expert legal and financial referrals. We have referrals for short-term therapeutic services. You will always have a family consultant once you've gone through an assessment. We have sometimes you may need something that you need to purchase that might help for, say, a ramp in the home, or maybe some toilet seats that your relative may not qualify for, and it might be helpful to be able to purchase some things. We also have temporary respite assistance, and that's so that you can take a break for a few hours, but we are able to give you some financial assistance around being able to take a break so that the person can be safe while not just to go run errands, but also for you to maybe just have an uninterrupted hot shower, an uninterrupted, or go to that family reunion you wanted to go to, assuming, they're not telling you what to do all the time. But that's neither here nor there. So the final slide is, how do you reach us? Very easy. Here's a phone number. You can start everything online. And you can email us. You can there's a referral form, which I'll show you on the next one, but we're very easy to find. And everything we do is either by phone, or some of the things are done in the community, but it all really starts with that phone call, that warm discussion. And you can also go on what we call our Care Nav program. When you go on our website, you can kind of get in all the information of your name and everything, and then we'll call you back and we can begin that more in-depth discussion. Next slide, please. This is kind of what a referral form looks like. You don't really need to read everything on there, but sometimes if somebody of a social service agency or the hospital or other professionals want to reach us, they will send us this form which says, how do I find this person? And so that we can call you back. Finally, we also have our Center for Advancing Family Caregiver Financial and Workplace Security. That center will be up and running in March. And when you go on there are going to be a lot of very specific information around financial security and workplace. What are some workplace policies and resources that you can learn about that might be in your area? And this is will be a national center. So even if you have somebody who's helping you with caregiving who lives in another state, you can all learn about how to help with your financial security, because your planning, what you're doing now, is something that's also going to impact you in the long run from your caregiving. In the meantime, you can always join our mail list so that we'll let you know when this center is up, and you can also join our mail list at the Caregiver Resource Centers. And that way you'll always know whether you're ready or not to call us and get more personalized information and services. Being on our mail list, you might see something you're interested in, and we don't bug you too much with mail. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Benton, for your invaluable insights and your unwavering leadership in supporting caregivers across America. The information you provided for the LACRC is very important, since we sometimes forget that caregivers need assistance as well. Now, I would like to introduce our next speaker from the LA Found team, Kwa Win, who will provide a brief presentation on LA Found and information on how caregivers can receive a free tracking bracelet for their loved ones. Kwa Win is a talented community service analyst too with the Los Angeles County Aging and Disabilities Department, bringing over 14 years of dedicated service to LA County. For the past 7 years, he has been a driving force behind the LA Found program, contributing his expertise to improving safety and support for vulnerable residents. He holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, Riverside. Everybody, please help me welcome Kwawin.
Thank you. Thank you, Nita, for that introduction. And before I get started, I obviously wanted to just send my thank you out to Dr. Benton and Dr. Han, who provided such invaluable resources today. Your information, your research, top notch. So let me get started with the presentation for LA Found. And again, my name is Kwa Nguyen, it's spelled Khoa, last name Nguyen, Nguyen. And I hope today's presentation on LA Found will provide some useful information to you and to really just highlight the importance of supporting caregivers. So next slide, please. So let me start by just telling you a little bit about how this program got started. This is the case of Nancy. Nancy is 55 years old. Nancy lives right here in LA County, and on just a regular outing, and on October 15th in 2016, regular outing with her family to the museum, and just like a story that you've heard plenty of times, she walked out of the museum. The family couldn't find her, and it took about 2 years for them to find out really what happened to Nancy. So, rooted in that experience, obviously, her family and her husband Kirk in particular brought this issue up to our fourth district supervisor, Janice Hahn. And Janice definitely supported the whole initiative. And out of all their experience, rooted in their experience, LA Found was launched in 2018, basically. So this is LA Found. And in its seventh year now in LA Found, we were able to basically honor Nancy with LA Found Day, which was on October 15th in 2025, just commemorating 7 years since the day that she wandered. So on that day, just reminding everyone that it's important to support our family caregivers and just to be educated about what's happening there. So let's go on to our next slide, please. All right, so this is just a little bit of numbers to kind of support what we're doing here. I don't want to get too deep into this information, but according to the Alzheimer's Association in 2025, over 700,000 people are living with, over the age of 65 are living with Alzheimer's. And out of those people, 1.4 million unpaid caregivers are providing support to them. So can we go on to the next slide, please? And then also the prevalence of autism here in California, about 1 in 19 children are being diagnosed with autism. And we also see a lot of participation in our LA Found program as well, probably about 60 to 40. And for every 10 people, you have probably about 6 people who are participants with dementia, and about four on the younger side with some other cognitive impairment. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So let's go talk a little bit about the technology that LA Found offers, right? So we have now 2 different tracking technologies. You'll see the little gray bracelet. That's the Project Lifesaver radio frequency tracker. So that's like the rock and roll of personal safety devices. It's been around for a long time, this vendor. Also available, through other law enforcement agencies throughout this country as well. So very well known, good track record. And again, that first bracelet operates on radio waves, meaning that the sheriff's department have the ability to track that bracelet as long as the participant's wearing it, using radio equipment in their vehicles. On the right-hand side there, you will see the Theora Care GPS watch. So this is a more contemporary piece of tracking equipment, a very simplified version of a smartwatch, if you will. Just several tools designed specifically for caring for people with cognitive impairment and their caregivers in mind. Specifically hands-free calling, which is just an amazing tool for caregivers and their loved ones to stay in contact with each other. Live GPS tracking, which can't be substituted for. And then also there is geofencing, which is very nice, giving families alerts and everything like that. So a more contemporary way of monitoring per se. So those are the 2 different kind of tracking devices we have. And obviously for every family who applies to our program, we will sit down and talk about which ones of these tracking devices would be a better fit for their situation, maybe just a better fit for their neighborhood. So that's a little bit of what we do in terms of tracking devices and what we offer. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So caregivers, when a caregiver applies to our program, they will receive basically a phone call from one of our analysts, one of our staff in the program. We go over kind of everything with them about how to use the tracking device, how to take care of it, what their responsibilities would be if they ever need to call 911. We kind of outline for them what their local law enforcement looks like, and also showing them the steps to elevate one of their, missing persons incidents to a silver alert if necessary. So we do try to sit down and provide our caregivers with a little bit of information about what they can expect, if a family member goes missing, and as well as a set of protocols to follow to ensure that their loved one can be located and returned home safely. Next slide, please. Another piece of our program, obviously, is education, right? Making sure we're out in the community, bringing awareness, taking away the stigma for all of our caregivers here. So our team is available for in-service trainings, presentations, even just one-on-ones with your participants, with anybody who may need just a little bit of information or a little bit of just like I think Dr. Benton said, just someone to talk to about what they're going through. Next slide, please. It's probably the most important part. The most important part of my presentation here is how to apply for our program. So on your screen there, you'll see a QR code, which is linked to our website, and that is lafound.ad.lacounty.gov. You can also call our LA Found hotline at 833-569-7651. You can also email us as well at lafound@ad.lacounty.gov, or you can always send an in-person application, a paper application, if you will, to the LA Found program. And our address is located at 510 South Vermont Avenue, Suite 1100, and that's in Los Angeles, California, 90020. Next slide, please. And that might be the last one, you guys. So that's it. I think that's all I have for you guys today. And I just wanted to, before I end it, to just thank our whole executive team, our divisional management team, and also our LA Found team here for putting this, together. And definitely not possible without all your guys' hard work. So that's all I have. And back to you, Nitsa, and thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you, Kwa. And thank you to all of our speakers for today. Thank you, Dr. Han, Dr. Benton, and again, thank you, Kwa. So now we can begin our Q&A session. I do see one question that was asked. Is the program offered to everyone within LA County or only for eligible cities? Kwa, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, absolutely. I believe I heard the question is it only in LA City or is it in the county? Was that correct?
Is it offered everywhere within LA County or only eligible cities?
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. It is offered through anywhere, as long as the person wearing the bracelet is living here in Los Angeles County, they would be eligible to receive one. We've had situations where the caregiver may be living in the next county or so, but their loved one and other family members are here in LA County. We're able to help those families in that situation as well. So yes.
And also another question is there a fee for it, for the tracking device?
At this time, there is no fee for the tracking device. Both devices are free, and I believe families are allowed to have one or the other, and basically they'll make that selection through the application process.
And I see another question. Are there any dead spots in the coverage area?
So great question. I know that recently we've had to some families asking that situation as well, and kind of these big emergencies where power gets shut down. In those situations, GPS signals may not work, and then in those situations, the Project Lifesaver tracking device is the one that's being recommended, just because it operates on radio waves, short range radio waves, doesn't rely on any of the larger infrastructure to work. As long as the participant is wearing Project Lifesaver and a sheriff's officer has the tracking equipment, they're able to potentially find each other. In terms of GPS tracking watches, each family living in each neighborhood, what we've seen is that they do say, yes, there are dead zones, maybe at a park, maybe at a large nature reserve that's in your neighborhood. And using the GPS watch, they're able to identify those little zones and maybe have a different plan for their family member when they walk in that area, or maybe avoid that area altogether. But so the short answer is that there are dead zones, and the long answer is, each piece of equipment kind of unique in its pros and cons. So.
Thank you, Kwa. And a question for Dr. Han. Dr. Han, if anybody wants to look up any links to your research or the financial red flags, do you have any available?
Yeah, so if people are interested in our research, I will just direct them to our website, which is hanresearchlaboratory.com. And we have links or at least information on most of our studies there.
Thank you. And Dr. Benton, I believe you already provided some information for links on how to apply for LACRC. And I do see, will we be providing the slides for those on the call? Yes, we will. Once it's ready to be dispersed, we will definitely be providing the slides. There are some links on the chat for Dr. Han's research lab. We have another question. Is there a registry or databases of mail-based fraudsters? Dr. Han, I believe that way for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish there were, but I don't think there are. I will share the postmaster. The U.S. postmaster is very concerned about this issue and is following up on trying to prevent fraudsters from using the mail. So there's lots of ongoing efforts focused on this exact question, but I don't believe there's a registry or like a publicly available database at this point in time. Part of the reason is because actually there are a lot of court cases against these people, and they can't release that publicly because it's part of the court case. So I think that could be a reason why it's not publicly available yet.
Yeah, I think that one of the best suggestions that Dr. Han already is that you learn what they are, and there are places like Wise and Healthy Aging or other scam organizations that help you understand what are some of the common scams that are out there, because they're changing a lot. The access with AI and the telephone,
Mhm.
people can make people sound like one of your relatives. They can have fake things. So you have to, if you understand, like doing things like having a common safe word. So if someone calls and says, "I've got your, I'm trapped in Bolivia and please send money," you may ask that family member, "Okay, what's the last time we met on blah blah day, or what's our password that we use for this?" Just so that you have some protection, because of the because artificial intelligence can mimic a lot of people now. So learning techniques and learning some of the more common scams as they keep changing and evolving is a good way to help yourself and the person you're caring for.
Yeah, and I would echo everything Dr. Benton just said, and that's a great. Honestly, the password is a great idea, and I
Yes.
have to say I'm going to pass that on.
Yeah.
That's the first I've ever
Have a
heard of it, and
password within your
that's great.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just also add, if people are interested in keeping up with the current scam and fraud situations that are out there, AARP has the Fraud
Yeah.
Watch Network, and so they do a good job of cataloging what scams are out there and what they might look like. There's also the National Center on Elder Abuse. And that's something that is a publicly available resource. And if people want more information, they're always happy to engage with people who want to learn more. So those are just two more resources I wanted to pass on.
Thank you. Dr. Benton, I have one more question for you. What would be the easiest way to get in touch with LACRC? Sometimes caregivers are either time limited or
Calling 1-800-540-4442, toll free. If you're calling after 5 o'clock, because we're not 24/7, leaving a message and we will get back to you. It's always good to say what time, because you may not recognize our phone number. And I know that we're being told, don't answer and pick up when you don't recognize someone. So to minimize phone tag, you can say what time to give you a call back during the regular working hours, or you can, if you want to begin the process online too.
thank you so much. If anybody has any further questions that you want to have answered later on after the webinar, you can email us at lafound@ad.lacounty.gov. Contact us. Sorry, call us on the phone line. It's 833-569-7651. At this time, I want to thank all of the speakers for today for your time and incredible advocacy and devotion to continue to make LA Found program available to all of Los Angeles County. Thank you again to our Aging and Disabilities Interim Director, Maral Karakuzian, Professor of Psychology and Family Medicine, Dr. Duke Han, Director of USC Family Caregiver Support Center and LACRC, Dr. Donna Benton, Kwa Win, and the entire LA Found team, including Maritza Gomez, Cynthia Lopez Paz, and Christina Michiraggio, our communications team, for all of the work to put this webinar together. I want to remind everyone that a recording of the webinar, slides, and resources will go out at a later time. Please be on the lookout for this. And don't forget to plug into knowledge, support, and early action. You can also scan the QR code on the slide to apply or obtain more information about LA Found. You can call 833-569-7651. Our email is lafound@ad.lacounty.gov, and our website is ad.lacounty.gov. With that, at this time, we will conclude the webinar. And again, I want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you so much.